Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my October reading wrap up and favorites. This is where every month I tell you about my reading stats, how things were going, and then I talk about my 5 favorite reads of the month. I will not be talking about every single book that I've read. If you would like to know more about that, I have a playlist that has my weekly wrap-ups where I do talk about every single book that I've read for the entire year. So there are 42 of them, because 2 of the weeks I did double weeks, but there are 42 weekly wrap-ups where I talk about every single book that I've read. But let's go ahead and dive into this. I'm very excited to speak about some of these books. But let's start with my reading stats, as always. So I read 44 books this month, which is pretty much my average this year, so feeling pretty good about that. There was a total of 13,570 pages within those books, and that averages out to about 452 pages per day. These books were in the following formats. I had 13 ebooks, 7 audiobooks, 11 ARCs, and 20 physical books. The ratings for these books were, I had 2 DNFs this month. You know, that doesn't happen all the time, but just a couple that I couldn't hack it with. I had 6 6-star reads, but that did include quite a few rereads because I reread a lot of books every month. 10 5 stars, 3 4.5 stars, 13 4 stars, 4 3.5 stars, 5 3 stars, and 1 2.5 star. Then just for funsies, I did have 39 of these books that were parts of series and only 5 that were standalones. That's just something I've started just kind of putting in my notes because I think it's interesting. I don't have a goal of how many standalones or series I need to read, but I like seeing that. These books were in the following subgenres of romance, or I actually had some that aren't technically in the romance realm at all this month, which was interesting. But I had 14 contemporary, 5 historical, 12 dark romance, 5 paranormal, 3 fantasy, 2 erotic, 2 suspense, and 1 dystopian. I'm actually surprised I didn't read more paranormal. I thought I'd read more than that. Given that it was October, but I guess not. And then the 4 main tropes that I had within these were forced proximity, BDSM, age gap, and mafia. Now, when I do BDSM as this, it's actually, I have a bunch of things grouped together. So it's also like dynamic play or kinky things involved as well as BDSM. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the official kind of BDSM. It can just be, you know, if there are certain aspects included in it and stuff. So yeah, nice and easy. Now let's talk about what my favorite books were, because I had 3 new 6-star reads this book, or I had 3 new 6-star reads this month, and I love them so much. So one of them is Taurine by Amara Ray. This one's going to be shiny, so I'm just going to show that I do have the beautiful physical copy. I also love the step back page here. And then I'm going to put up a photo so that it doesn't shine at me the whole time. So Taurine is book 5 in the Immortal Coven series. I have been reading this series since March this year and absolutely loving it. This month I actually had the chance to interview Amara Ray, so you can find that video up here. She really shared a lot about how she came about these characters in this story and where she plans to go next. She was absolutely delightful, and she is actually a longtime watcher of this channel too. So hi Amara, if you're watching, I freaking love your books. But this story is about Cassandra, who is part shifter, part witch. All of the witches in this series are hybrids. That's kind of how their coven is built. And she made a deal in a previous book with a demon named Raziel. And so what she has to do is she has to give herself over to Raziel for a certain amount of time to let him do with her what she wishes. And there is an elder witch council, or the elder council of witches is holding June, who is the one true ruler of the witches, and she's being held captive. And she's found a way to save her, but Raziel needs help, and so that's where our deal comes in, and her family of her witch coven are not too happy that she's made this deal. They definitely see her as more fragile than everyone else. She does have severe sexual trauma in her background, so definitely know that going in. Amara always does a wonderful job sharing the triggers in the beginning of each of her books. She has a nice little note to readers, because this book does definitely deal with body betrayal, because a lot of the assaults that she went through, her body would respond to her attackers, and she always felt very like some part of her must have wanted it, and so she has a lot of self-hatred for that, which is difficult. And so Raziel, he also has a mission that he needs to complete. He needs to open up a rift between Earth and Inferna, and to do that he needs his mate, and so he knows that Cass is his mate, and they need to both accept each other, because for demons it isn't enough for the man to claim the woman, she has to claim him in return. And how is he going to do that when his lovely mate, he goes to, you know, he's planning to win her over sexually. Like, we're not saying he's not willing to do some sexual coercion, but once he, you know, has her in this room and he's going to do that, he can tell that not only is she completely shutting down and removing herself from what's happening, she's not going to participate in this sexual experience, which not only would he never do that to a female, but he also, like, you can't be mated with your female. You could certainly have sex with her, but you wouldn't be mated with your female if she doesn't reciprocate, which is a very, like, interesting loophole that Amara puts into this story. And so, though he is the demon prince of deception, he knows that he is going to need to use Cass, but the more time he spends with her, the more he just wants to help heal her, just because, like, she's his other half, and he hates seeing her this way, and he knows that the closer he gets her to trusting him, when he betrays her, it will be that much worse. So we're definitely in a catch-22 that's, like, it hurts, you know? So I don't feel that Amara Ray overdoes the, like, violence or is gratuitous with what happens to Cass, but she definitely doesn't undersell the trauma that she's in. And we also have a case of, like, our hero has also been molested in a certain way, and so he is able to, like, empathize with her in a way that maybe no other mate would have done. And I've said this, but the first time that they truly have sex together, I didn't even notice that I was crying. Like, I couldn't read my Kindle, and I was like, what's happening? And it's because there were tears streaming down my face. Like, the way that Amara built the intimacy between these two, when they finally gave their bodies to each other, it was earth-shattering. Like, it was amazing. So great. Obviously a 6-star for me. And it was very powerful. Then there's Heartless by Elsie Silver. This was just so obviously a 6-star book for me. Like, I read this when I was on vacation a couple weeks ago, and I was smiling through every second of this book. I loved it so much. And one of my honorable mentions for the month, which I meant to mention at the beginning, but I was too excited to talk about these books, I read Flawless for my Patreon exclusive review. So I have a video that's available only for my patrons, because that was the book that was voted on, and I really loved it. It's probably one of my favorite I've read for my Patreon this year. And so this book was just coming out when I read that one, and so I immediately jumped into this because, you know, we get to see both of these characters, Willa and Cade, in the other book. He's the brother of the hero, and she's the best friend of the heroine. And he's a single dad. He's the oldest brother. He's grumpy. He's had to take on a lot of responsibility at different points in time. And sorry, bugs. I hate box elder bugs so much. And he needs a nanny for his son for the summertime. And Willa, she has lost her job and she doesn't know what she wants to do next, and she's kind of at loose ends. And Cade is looking for a woman who's not going to hit on him, because there's a lot of women that he's interviewed to be a nanny, and they either want to fuck him and don't really care about the kid that much, or they're like old and his son wouldn't have a lot of fun with them. And he's a very caring and loving father. And he would be with his son all the time. And like, he does have like, his dad is still alive, but he's like, I don't want you to have to be a disciplinarian for my son. Like, I want you to have a grandfather and grandson relationship. So I don't want you to have to watch him all day while I'm working. And so Summer recommends to Cade, how about my friend Willa? She'd be the perfect one for the summer. And so Willa and Cade meet, and he immediately is like off-put by her, mostly because she's attractive, also because she seems like flighty to him, but his son is instantly in love with her. And Willa is instantly in love with Luke. They are just bonded instantly. And so Cade's like, fine. Because this is a live-in nanny position as well. Like, they live a ways from town, and he needs to get up early and be gone. And so he has a room for the nanny to stay in. And now he's like, I have literally just put this huge temptation right in my house with me. Her looking hot all the time, being sweet with my son. I don't have time for this, you know. But so he's a grumpy Gus, and she's a sassy, sweet nanny. And I've been telling people there are parts about this specifically, like, I know it's not a one-for-one comparison. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the reason this was like an instant 6-star for me is, well, there's many reasons. Like, there's the cowboy aspect. I love that. Small town, single dad, heroine who is just, it's not that her life has been perfect or that she's perfect. She's a little bit unflappable. She's so kind to everyone, but she also like takes no shit. But she's not like a bitchy character either, which I appreciate a bitch now and then. We've talked about that. But she's just so like perfectly imperfect and just wonderful. Like, I don't know. I adore her so much. And so the comparison I'm trying to make is that this story reminded me of The Takeover in a lot of aspects, okay? And the ways that it does, again, this isn't a one-for-one thing, but it reminds me of that because of the connection between the kid and like Willa and Luke. The way that Willa sticks up for Luke, like there's a scenario where Luke is being teased and Willa goes total like badass to protect him, and this is something Cade sees like from a distance, and it just locks his heart in even more. And that's something I very much saw between Claire and Tristan as well, is like she was already thought this man was beautiful and wonderful, and then she sees him with her kids, and it's so great. The way that this book is better than The Takeover, and I'm like, not as a whole, I still love The Takeover more, but the way that this one is better for me is in the third act. The way that this book like comes to a conclusion without angst, but yet like we still have like a roadblock, but the way the characters behave is so mature. Nobody freaks out, throws a fit, gets angry. There is a pause of a moment where they're like, we need to think about something, and the hero's like, no, it means you're leaving, and she's like, I'm not. I'm literally for the weekend, like we just need to think. And the thing is, like, that happens in books. And we're like, oh, this is a breakup. It's a break. It never feels like a breakup. This is not a third act breakup that happens. It's the heroine being like, you've never got to have a choice. Okay? Like, how he became a single dad. How he became responsible for so many things at the ranch. Like, he's never had a choice. And so Willa is like, I know you think you're sure what do you want, but like, let's just make sure. And that never felt like her taking a step back. It felt like her being like, we're just gonna take a night. And like, the emotions are high. And it was just so mature, and not in the way of her being like, I need to get away from you, or like, I can't handle my emotions. To me, it literally read like, we just need to take a beat. It's good to take a beat sometime. And I fully believed it. And that's just my opinion. But this is stuff that I'm looking for, okay? Because even The Takeover, which I love, and to me still is one of my favorite books ever. We'll see with this. I'm going to reread this at the end of the year, and I'll probably reread it when there's an audiobook available. Like, it could get there, is my point. This book will be in my top books ever. I just don't know how high, okay? I just don't know how high. You could absolutely jump right into this. I know people are going to ask me. You could jump right into this book. You don't have to read Flawless, but Flawless was fantastic for me. It was a 5-star book, okay? The reason Flawless isn't also on this list is because this was a 6-star book, and I had other 6-star books to share. Flawless was also amazing. But this book is perfect to me. Like there's not a page, there's not a scene, there's not a scenario that I write differently. I mean, I wish I could write like this, but it's perfect. So it gets 6 stars. All right, there we go. I talked about it enough, but it was amazing. Then the other, sorry, I got so excited, I closed my book. The other 6-star book is Resting Witch Face, which actually came out today, the day that I'm filming this, but you won't see this video for a couple days. This is also a book 5 in a series. This is book 5 in the Stay a Spell series. I have gushed about this one a ton. Absolutely, I have. But this is Jules and Ruben, vampire and a witch. Our heroine's in her 40s. So that's kind of cool. Our vampire, he's very, very old, so we won't worry about that. But this is a second chance romance. They were together for a few months' time back 12 years ago, and then something happens where it doesn't appear that they're able to move forward in their relationship because of some conflicts. And so we have a prologue in this where they're together and we see how great it is, and then something goes wrong and they're not together anymore. And then we pick up 12 years later, and for the past 2 years, Jules and Ruben have been around each other again, which started in Wolf Gone Wild. We actually see their like first meeting again after 10 years back then. And Jules has seen how he's changed, and how, you know, she's at a different place in her career and in her work as the enforcer and siphon for New Orleans. And Ruben has just been biding his time and waiting for the time to be right to make his move, and the time has come. And so Jules and Ruben, him being the vampire overlord, her being the, you know, enforcer, they have a mission that they're going on, that they go on together. They're going on this road trip, and this is the time that Ruben is going to be making his move. And so he does. He definitely ramps it up. He's making it happen. And I love it, absolutely love it. I don't want to spoil a single thing about this one because I want everybody to dive into it and enjoy it. You've probably been anticipating it, but it's so great. It was swoony, it was beautiful. I love second chance romance. I know not everyone does, but I love it. It's one of my favorite tropes to read when it's done well, like anything else. And Juliet brings the steam, she brings the longing, but it's not overly angsty and it's not overly dark. The final conflict at the end with external darkness, there is some external darkness at the end. We are fighting against some evil forces. This is paranormal. This series is beautiful, okay? It's just beautiful. So highly, highly recommend this series. You can start with Wolf Gone Wild. There's audiobooks for the first 4 books. This will be wide to start with for the first is it like 2 weeks or 2 months? I can't remember. But Juliet puts them wide to start with so that everybody can get them, because in some places, if it's in KU, they can't buy it anywhere else then. So it will be in KU eventually, but I highly recommend you read it now. You can do it. It's only $5. Get yourself a beautiful copy of it. You want to do it. Next, I want to talk about Ruined Secrets. This one was book 4 in the Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altaj. I have been loving this series so much. This one is again a mafia age gap arranged marriage. And in this one we have Isabella and Luca. In the beginning of this, Luca is getting divorced from his cheating wife, and Isabella's grandfather sets them up. So literally he signs the divorce papers and he gets married to Isabella, who is only 19, and he's, I think, 36 something. I don't remember how old he is, whatever. And he actually has a child with his first wife, and he very much wants their marriage to stay as a marriage of convenience because he feels kind of like a creepy old man that he's married to a teenager. And he definitely in the beginning of the book like talks about her as a child. He very much is like, this is what you are. He also, you know, maybe has some desires that he's hiding that he thinks would scare her as a young woman. But here's the thing. Isabella was raised to be the wife of a mafia man, okay? Her grandfather prepared her. She knows her shit. She has her connections. She was prepared for this role. And so she's very, like, annoyed with Luca that he's trying to keep her away from this, that he's putting distance between the two of them when she knows how powerful they could be together. And so she definitely is working her womanly wiles on him. She has also pined for him for a while, like even when he was married before, she had a thing for him. And so this is kind of her dream come true, to be married off to him. So there's also that aspect of it. And then kind of the like midway-ish twist to this story. It's not fully midway, but that happens, is that this is an amnesia romance as well. And like, we know that in the beginning, so this isn't like a spoiler, because the prologue is Luca waking up and not knowing who anyone is. And then we go back and we go through the story, and then we get to the point where he gets amnesia, and we realize that like he doesn't remember that he was hesitant to marry Isabella, and Isabella maybe pushes that he's more into her than she thinks that he is, which little does she know that he was already falling for her. So I really loved this. This had some very fun kinkiness involved. This one has more BDSM aspects and more steam than any of the previous ones in this series. And I just really liked it. I really liked it. I liked what was done with the amnesia aspect to this one, and also the type of like kink that was involves some good things. So I really enjoyed that. And then the last favorite of the month that I want to mention is The Lotus Palace by Jenny Lin. So this was actually my Rake Appreciation Society, which is a book club I have with my best friend Crystal. And this was a 9th century China kind of like mystery historical romance. Okay, like I would say that the romance and the mystery go like they're pretty even, but the romance is very slow burn in this. And so we actually have Yu Ying, who is a maidservant for a concubine, or a thing like that. And then we have Bai Wang, who is an aristocratic playboy who also has some secret agendas that he's working on, but definitely his persona is that he's a scholarly playboy type thing. And so he comes around the Lotus Palace, which is a high-class brothel, and flirts with Yu Ying's mistress that she works for. But really, he's playing a little bit dumb because he's trying to get information and spy for certain things. And when a woman ends up dead, and then Yu Ying's mistress disappears, we find out that that mistress is actually Yu Ying's older sister. And so it's a really big deal that she disappeared. And Bai Wang was one of the last people who was seen with the woman who had died. And it's also known that he had been courting this woman. And so he is like suspect number 1. And Yu Ying doesn't think that he's done it. And so he ends up kind of roping her into helping prove that he didn't do it. And they want to try to find her sister. So this was a slow burn. This was also so different from anything else I'd ever read. Like, it really was a complete step in a different direction for me, but I thought it was done so well. And Jenny Lin really built this world so vividly for me. I listened to an audio of this, and it just sucked me in so much. And I was so drawn into this romance. Like, this is a heroine who has like a lot of trauma. She was actually a sex worker before she was able to work for her sister. So now she doesn't have to sell herself. She helps her sister do that. And there are some really dark themes in this. Like, this book deals with sex trafficking. It deals with, the life of sex workers. It's also a completely different culture than ours. So there are families who it's just kind of like expected that men have concubines. And that is kind of a main conflict for Bai Wang and Yu Ying. Like, when they've gotten closer together, like, he's expected to be part of an arranged marriage. And so the most he could offer her is to be his like number 1 concubine. And she just knows from seeing that life played out that she couldn't live it herself, that she wants a man who's only hers because she's had to share and been shared with men all her life. So I don't love mistress stories either, that, but this one had me sucked in so much. I just had to put it as a favorite. When I was looking at the books I read, I just had to have this as a favorite of the month. So those are the 5 that I put as that, and then I did have some honorable mentions, like I said, and Flawless was one of those. Also, King of Wrath by Anna Huang came out this month, and I did really love that one. It was so hard to pick favorites this month, but I didn't want to only pick new releases, and so The Lotus Palace I really wanted to put in there. And then I reread Lothair this month, right at the beginning of the month actually, and I just had to mention it because I always love spending time with Lothair and Ellie. even though they're absolutely crazy. I love spending time with them. It makes me so happy. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this. I'd love to hear what your top 3 reads of the month were, and maybe what your least favorite was too. I don't usually talk about the things that I don't like, so I just moved along with that, but I'd love to hear for you what it was. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put up new videos 3 to 4 days a week. If you'd like to support my channel, I do this full time. I have my links down below for how you can support me. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.